Hi there. My name is Melissa Olson. I am the Director of Infor Solutions with RPI Consultants.
Hey, I'm Matthew Slazak. I'm a Principal HCM Consultant here at RPI as well.
So today we are going to talk about employee engagement. We'll go through some of the trends that are coming out for 2023, have been around for 2023, 2024, and then we'll talk about what you can do in your Infor HR Talent System to help support some of those trends and more engagement with your teams. So, let's get this started, Matt. We talk a lot about this with our clients. We have our initial implementations where it's just about getting data into the system, maybe, getting some talent management applications up, but a lot of times it's not really strategic to meet goals like employee engagement. What have you been hearing? And, we've got a definition kind of up here. What do you think about what is employee engagement?
Yeah, so I think there's a little bit of a misnomer for a long time. People thought of engagement as something or as kind of a highfalutin concept that not any HR department can do. It's just like this high-end buzzword that people will roll out and say that this is, we want to increase engagement, but they don't really know what that means or have the tools to do it. I remember back when I was working at the hospital, we would have an engagement survey every few years, but it wasn't something that always seemed like it was part of our daily life. But we want to talk about ways where it actually can be kind of more functional and less buzzy. How we can actually implement it, even in the situations where we have this big implementation. There are still ways and tools that we can start to make engagement a little bit more accessible to people and understand that it's not just this weird concept. There's direct results that can be gleaned from it if we really engage our employees and get them going. And I think this is where we're talking about like this transition from that initial implementation into true strategic HR.
So let's talk about some of those trends, those buzzwords kind of, that we've been hearing. In 2023, beginning of the year, Gallup came out with their polls, what they've been seeing, what they've been hearing across different workplaces. And, flexibility is huge. We've been hearing that over the last 3 years, being able to have that hybrid workplace, being able, it doesn't even mean remote working. It's understanding your employees as people and understanding they have lives outside of work. And if they're able to join, their personal responsibilities or things that really they love with the time that they put into work, there is going to be a happiness, being able to have a job that supports the things that you love.
Mm-hmm. And with that flexibility, that's one of the things that we've seen come up where this flexibility but depending upon, some surveys that are out there, some of the remote workers, if they never come into the office, they might be less engaged. And how do we keep them consistent with the company's values or organizational goals? So that's one of the big changes that we've seen lately with this new hybrid environment. We need to keep that flexibility, but also keep employees engaged with the company.
A couple of the other trends that we've seen over the last few years are huge efforts around DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Not always, the whole organization is not always on board with all of those. So I think, Matt, you'll talk a little bit, or we'll show in the system a little bit of the areas where we can try and have some more visibility and have some tools to help our managers engage with those resistance employees. Matt's going to really get into some of the internal mobility and then and some manager expectations. Matt, you want to kind of talk about what people are dealing with now in this kind of new world, combination of post-pandemic and also the new workforce, Gen Z, still millennials, what they expect from their workplace.
Absolutely. So what we've seen, if you read through things that are coming out all the time through, Gallup or through Society for Human Resource Management, we're seeing this shift in expectations as well. You know, we're talking about Gen Z versus other workers, et cetera. That engagement really is foundational. They want to feel like they're plugged into something that's greater than themselves. They want to have that connection with the workplace, not just in the work itself, but they want to make sure that the work is meaningful and there's something that is kind of tying them together with what they're doing. You know, we're asking people to work, you know, at least 40 hours a week a lot of times, doing something, and they want to have that connection. They want to have that that feeling of belonging to the organization, and their work is doing something. It's not just, you know, pushing a button anymore. It's actually, what are we doing here? When I push this button, what does it mean? Or when I'm working with the patient, you know, it's very easy for us to kind of see that. It's a very direct connection, that one-to-one relationship between I'm doing this and this is helping this person. But how can, you know, other workers see that as well? And then beyond that, what's it building toward? I don't necessarily want to push the same button every day, or I don't always want to be a staff nurse. Maybe I want to move up in the organization. I want to become a charge nurse. I want to, you know, maybe become the CNRO one of these days. That's absolutely valid, but that idea of internal mobility and knowing that I can build towards something is really, really important. And it's kind of a big shift for a lot of people. They want to understand what that career path really is and how can I get there.
Yeah, that you know, knowing that you're supporting the organization, the mission, you're all working toward a goal together. So I've got one more slide here, but I really want to get into what the meat of today is, and it's going to be short. So, you know, we've got numbers here. You know, we're not going to read them out to you, but it's really impactful when you have these disengaged employees, because it's not that they're just not doing their work. They're also kind of creating this toxicity across the organization or across their department or their team. And you will find, you know, it's easier for negativity to cross than for positivity to cross. I think we read something, you know, you need 4 engaged workers to counteract the negativity of 1 disengaged. So with that, let's kind of talk through what that engagement of the first year, your new hire, when you're in the system, what can you support these some of these initiatives with data and Infor HR talent?
Yeah, so, you know, we're used to thinking about this idea of employee engagement as something that's like a big project. This has to be like a huge lift to transform from being that transactional HR department to a strategic HR department. And, you know, that can be the case. And over the, you know, next few sessions, we'll talk about how, you know, we could leverage the career planning module or succession planning, things like that. But starting with that first year, Sharon put out a statistic earlier this year that 80% of companies right now have an onboarding program that's less than 3 months. And if your whole new employee onboarding is just literally come in, here's some policies, sign off on them, and away you go, you're not really engaging with your employee. You kind of set them up to do their job, and they've become that person who's pushing a button all the time, but they don't really know how they connect to the rest of the organization. So one place where we can really use this without standing up another whole module, we've already got something like transition management that a lot of our clients are using. So I'm just going to take us over here for a moment and just show you something very quick in our system. There we go. Slowly coming up.
Yeah, so we'll be doing a 3-part series as he's bringing that up. So today we'll be talking about, you know, the new hire, the first year, and then we'll be talking about your incumbent employees. How do you create and maintain engagement with people who've been with your organization for a while, or, you know, over a year, and then that future upskilling, the career growth, the opportunities to keep them in your organization and give them the opportunities for growth and development. So here we go.
Yep, you can see my screen okay?
I can see it.
Okay, Great. All right. So, talking about transition management, this is something where I think every project I've worked on in the past couple years, we've really leveraged transition management and stood that up very quickly. Get rid of that other software that you're using for onboarding. Let's start to use something that's baked into the system so I'm not sending multiple interfaces back and forth. So, transition management has kind of become almost a core product anymore. A lot of people implement it, and a lot of people will set up something like their onboarding program to be very transactional like this. It's very easy for us to see, here are the things that you're doing when you first get hired. Update your personal information, do your EEO, give me your emergency contacts, that kind of thing. Very straightforward, one-shot deal kind of things. But if you want to really engage the employee, one of the simplest tools you can use is transition management, because you can easily go in and expand this out a little bit further and do something like adding in a 30, 60, 90, 180, whatever it happens to be, to really start to engage that employee and build in a simple task like that for your administrative staff, the hiring manager, the direct supervisor, whomever it happens to be. And it can be something as simple as this, where we're just sending something out to the manager, reminding them, hey, this person is now 30 days in, we can build the schedule out, we have those automatic calculations that can happen to say 30 days post-hire, let's make sure that we sit down and let's have just a quick meeting with the employee. We're not doing anything extra. This is not a separate module. We're using transition management, just going in and help them understand their role in the organization. And just follow this up frequently. So you finish that one, now do it again in 60 days, and then in 90 days. Start to really get them to understand what their role is in the organization and clear up any roadblocks that are happening for them.
Yeah, that's a big thing, the roadblocks, right? If they feel like they were hired to a position and then they got there and it was a little different, it's being able to have that door open, that they know they can always come in and say, oh, look, I'm having a hard time here, or it's not waiting until they've already failed or they're disengaged to find out that there's a disconnect there.
Exactly. And think about this like in a unionized environment where you might have something like a performance evaluation or a probationary period where it's very regimented, and we know that after 6 months, we're going to say whether or not you're coming off of probation, or we're not really even supposed to bring up performance evaluations or anything until the full year goes by. This is something that complements it. It is not living inside performance management. It's really kind of just overall that onboarding program. Just spread it out over the entire year and keep that person engaged in the organization and understanding what they're doing. Something else to talk about with that is, with that standard onboarding program, maybe you don't want to bring that up for every single employee. Maybe you have a very high turnover position. You might not want to do that with every single employee. My argument would be that's probably the best person to do it with, to try to keep them in for high turnover positions. But you can also go and have a transition program that is a little bit more tailored. So maybe I have a leadership engagement group. And so it's the same kind of concept where we're going to still have that transition program, but it's going to be pared down a little bit. We're going to do the same things, but you can always use things like your eligibility groups and just say that this eligibility group is just for people in a certain job category, a certain job level. So the people you really want to make sure that you're holding on to, they're strategic hires. We don't want that person walking out the door. So build that transition program, let it fire off as soon as the person is hired or transferred into those positions. Keep them engaged, keep them warm. You don't want them leaving. You spend a lot of time getting them, so let's make sure that we keep them in there.